Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. La Republic to Cameroon's colonial military men in Amazonia have rendered many homeless. Their scorch earth policy in Amazonia have seen many houses burnt down. Cameroonians have been never sympathetic with Amazonians with the pains inflicted on them by La Republic to Cameroon terrorist forces. Nature has decided to make them have a pinch of what Amazonians have been going through in their own hands. A tornado has removed rooftops in La Republic du Cameroon, leaving many stranded with properties exposed to rain. Meanwhile, the fight to chase out the occupational forces and the colonial administrators of La Republic du Cameroon out of the Amazonian territory is not for some selected few but for all and sundry. The unity in the respect of the Monday lockdown speaks volumes. Instituted in 2017, Monday Ghost Towns is now accepted reality and proof of resilience on the part of the Amazonian people. We'll take a look at how it was observed today amongst a few national and international news, but only after the prime headlines.
All right, these are the prime headlines for today. We'll start today's news with an overview of the Southern Cameroon's Amazonian liberation struggle. Also today, ghosts take over the streets of Bamenda. You know what that means? It means that Ghost Town is very effective. Also, tornado destroys houses in La Republic du Cameroon. I'm sure you want to get the details of this particular report. La Republic du Cameroon is about as denizens of Bambalang pleads with the Ambazonia Restoration Forces for the release of their fawn. Also today on the world news, we have the new world currency, which is making the rounds, and it said that it could be in the making. Now, this is courtesy of the BRICS nation. You know they have a summit in August, right? Follow up with the news and get the full briefings of that particular report. Also, today we have the African report where Peter Obi of the Labour Party continues with his petition. On the sports corner, Graham Potter sacked by Chelsea after less than 7 months in charge. Now let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and daunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution and Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Amazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
International Crisis Group reports of the 31st of March 2023 admits that special status is not working and the cause of the war remains unsolved. In 2019, amid fighting with freedom fighters in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, the colonial occupier, La République du Cameroon, granted a special status to respond to demands for greater autonomy. This step has failed to quit their 6 years conflict. However, as clashes between the colonial government and Amazonian liberation forces continues, things are becoming worse. This is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Uni Obala. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very well, Ongi. Good evening, Ambazonians. The question is, why does it matter? The colonial La République Cameroon's military campaign to quash freedom fighters, the southern Cameroons, has achieved limited results amid continued fighting. A Canadian-led peace initiative encountered obstacles in early 2023, with the parties now silent about where talks stand. Exploration of special status could help the conflict parties find a solution. What should be done to talks gain traction? The Yaoundé annexationist government should discuss prospects for robust reform of the special status with freedom fighters.
Now let's take an overview of how this senseless war started. In 2019, as a separatist revolt raged in across the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, The Colonial Republic of Cameroon government granted a special status. Though a potentially significant legal and policy change, the move was dead on arrival. For the two people who came together in 1961 with equal status, surprisingly, see one overriding the other. 6 years of active killed over 45,000 southern Cameroonians and displaced hundreds of thousands as refugees in neighboring countries.
While armed Amazonian freedom fighters continue to ambush the occupier security forces as aid workers in their fight to free themselves from the annexationist majority French Cameroon. Efforts to facilitate a peace settlement between the warring parties have ebbed and flowed without gaining significant traction. Most recently, a Canadian led effort appeared to hit a hurdle when the colonial Yaoundé government issued a statement rejecting the idea of foreign facilitation to arrange talks with the southern Cameroons. Since then, the parties have been publicly numb about the status of any talks. The southern Cameroon's conflict has deep roots. Its immediate history traces to 2016 when the Yaoundé colonial repressive government cracked down on southern Cameroon's protesters who were demanding protection for the educational and judicial systems being eroded in the mix-up union with La République du Cameroon.
But tensions between the southern Cameroons and the majority Francophone central governments go back to decades. Today's Cameroon is an amalgamation of territories that were controlled by the French and the British during the colonial era. In the years right after the southern Cameroon's independence in 1961, a federal structure helped preserve a sense of autonomy in the country, but that arrangement did not last. Instead, the colonial Yaoundé central government reconfigured the state to consolidate power in Yaoundé. The moves towards centralization play in the southern Cameroon's Amazonia, where people feared assimilation into the majority French system. And in the 1990s, Yaoundé started using promises of decentralization to suit the southern Cameroon's anxieties.
While the special status rooted in a provision of the 1996 Constitution, allowing for more power to be allocated to some regions, is part of this trend. The 1996 innovation lay dormant until 2019 when the Yaoundé annexationist government gave it new life by enacting a law. The rollout of the special status got a chilly reception in the southern Amazonian community and met with outright hostility from freedom fighters. It did not help as the annexationist government pushed its changes through without consulting Amazonian leaders and activists. Reaching agreement on a reformed special status would not be easy, nor by itself would it be sufficient to cement a peace deal in the southern Cameroon's Amazonian conflict.
Now, let's look at the centralization and its discontent, as well as roots and disaffection. After 6 years, with more than 45,000 dead, the southern Cameroon's conflict is at a stalemate. The Yaoundé colonial government's military campaign in the southern Cameroon's Amazonia, as well as the Amazonian freedom fighters, their determination to fight, regardless of the cost, has displaced hundreds of thousands and deprived nearly 600,000 children of education. Non-governmental organization says the humanitarian situation in the southern Cameroon is there, with the conflict parties often targeting aid workers. About 2.2 million people urgently need aid. Attempts to resolve the crisis have made little progress, often falling apart in early stages. The colonial Yaoundé government did not participate in the Swiss facilitated initiative, which was launched in 2019, leaving Southern Cameroon's Amazonian group that had come to the table to wait in vain for it to join them.
Well, it also then launched its own dialogue in October of the same year in Yaoundé, despite the non participation of genuine Amazonian leaders. In January 2023, after months of discreet talks with Ottawa and La République du Cameroon proxy Amazonian groups, Yaoundé eventually decided not to join a new Canada led facilitation initiative, which is now in limbo. The southern Cameroon's unrest traces back to the colonial period, and the country struggled to strike a balance between federal control and centralization in the decades following decolonization. Contemporary Cameroon is a combination of two territories that were ruled by the French and British empires. The Anglophone regions were known during the colonial period as Southern Cameroons and administered by Britain as part of Nigeria. The balance of the territory that makes up modern day Cameroon was ruled by France until its independence on 1st January 1960.
At a time of decolonization, many among southern Cameroon's population favored forming an independent nation. But Britain, which administered the territory under a UN trust, and other countries argued that the territory was too small to be economically viable. It joined with the UN in deciding that there should be a plebiscite to give inhabitants a choice between joining Nigeria or unifying with the newly independent state formed from Francophone Cameroons. On 11th February 1961, voters chose to the later route and the former British and French colonies became unified. Power in post independence Cameroon was at first somewhat decentralized. The newly independent state was first constituted as a two state federation called the Federal Republic of Cameroon. It comprised the West Cameroon, which had been Southern Cameroons under the British rule, and East Cameroon, made up of territories that had been ruled by France.
Well, within a few years, that began to change. In 1966, President Amadou Ahidjo instituted a one party system in a move that sidelined political rivals, though it was ostensibly meant to promote national unity. 6 years later, he pushed through a referendum on a new constitution that gave him more powers and renamed the country the United Republic of Cameroon. Ahidjo claimed at the time that the federal structure was too costly and prevented him from pursuing his development agenda. A single national government took control of Anglophone primary educations, social affairs, local administration, agriculture, trade, public works, and other minor affairs run by the erstwhile government of West Cameroon.
Well, President Paul Biya, who succeeded Ahidjo in 1982 and holds power to this day, boosted centralization, using Cameroon's unitary state structure as a means of closely managing state prerogatives and funding decisions as well. Over the years, Paul Biya definitely used the supremacy of state power to consolidate his position. He single handedly filled many senior and mid level government posts, from the deans at public university to the administrators of hospital, and appointed officials at over 100 state owned enterprises and agencies as well. In February 1984, Paul Biya changed the country's name to the Republic of Cameroon, a move that angered many southern Cameroonians.
And after that, in 1993 and 1994, community leaders met at an all Anglophone conference held in Boya in the southwest and Bamenda in the northwest, following Bia's setting up of a committee to review the 1972 constitution promised at the 1991 tripartite gathering. The conference called for bringing back the federal structure discarded in the 1970s and creating separate Anglophone institutions. Other Anglophone movements began pushing for secession. Against this backdrop, Bia took steps towards decentralization and, in particular, towards meeting Anglophone demands. In 1993, he split the State University of Yaoundé into six, creating the University of Boya as the first Anglophone institution of higher learning. Then, as school protests continued, he authorized the creation of two separate examination boards: the Office du Baccalauréat du Cameroun, based in Yaoundé for French speakers, and the Cameroon General Certificate of Education Board, located in Boya, for English speakers. But these measures did not satisfy the protesters.
Well, as Cameroonians across the country took to the streets calling for democratic freedoms and Anglophones, Southern Cameroons demanded a review of the union, the government used the promise of further decentralization to appease them. It was not enough. In 1994, Anglophone leaders John Ngufoncher and Muner Both former prime ministers of West Cameroon and vice presidents of the Federal Republic of Cameroon resigned from the Consultative Committee for Review of the Constitution as it became clear that returning to a federal structure was not on the table. They launched diplomatic moves at the UN to seek support for the independence of what was once Southern Cameroons. Meanwhile, Amazonian expressed their opposition to the special status in the clearest possible way by continuing to engage in combat with the Occupying Republic of Cameroon army and targeting colonial Yaoundé government officials. In some cases, their hostilities towards the special status extends to the southern Cameroonian Anglophone politicians who participate in its institutions.
Now, moving on in 2020, one such group declared that assembly members are a target. In December 2021, the Bambalang Marine Forces militia abducted Fon Kevin Yakum, a traditional ruler who is vice president of the Colonial Republic of Cameroon's Regional Assembly. And as at the time of this, the colonial government till now has not secured his release. On 1st May 2022, the Amazonian Defense Force, another rebel militia under Cho Ayaba, kidnapped Regina Mundi, a Senate member of the La Republique du Cameroon, in Bamenda and freed her a few weeks later in unclear circumstances after taking ransom.
Well, as the conflict drags on with no end in sight, it is critical that the Colonial Republic of Cameroon government and Amazonian freedom fighters find common ground on which to rebuild trust and start forging a new path to a political solution which should be parting ways.
All right, now moving on to our next report. The fight to flush out the occupational forces and the colonial administrators of La Republique du Cameroon out of Amazonian territory is said to be for all and not just for a few. The unity in the respect of the Monday lockdown speaks a whole lot of volume. Instituted in 2017, Monday Ghost Towns is now accepted reality and proof of resilience on the part of the Amazonian people.
Despite the in-house brouhaha with foot soldiers of different affiliations on the ground, there is unity and oneness as far as the observation of Monday's ghost town is concerned. Bamenda is Amazonians in miniature today, April 3rd, 2023, with empty streets and Colonial Republic of Cameroon offices locked. Why the unity with Amazonia is a respect of Monday's ghost town? Well, today, Monday 3rd of April 2023, in Bamenda, portrays a landmark resilience on the path of the entire Amazonian to austere Colonial Republic of Cameroon's government agents in Amazonia.
Well, to make Amazonia ungovernable for La Republic of Cameroon, a ghost town was instituted in the entire southern Cameroon's Amazonia in the year 2017. And since then, the respect for this call has been a faithful one. La Republic of Cameroon authorities in Amazonia and Bamenda in particular have accepted that La Republic of Cameroon has lost rulership over Amazonia as they are respecting the ghost town. All public offices in Bamenda have their doors locked today, April 3rd, as are always on other Mondays. Going by the nature of the streets today in Bamenda, one might conclude Bamenda is a deserted zone. But no, people are in their homes, resting or engaged in different home activities. Others have taken Mondays as a day reserved for sporting activities.
Well, Mondays in Amazonian are quite frustrated to La Republic of Cameroon agents who must extort from Amazonians on working days. Now, there is no one for them to, squeeze money from or extort money from. Just the fact that those talks of the La Republic of Cameroon regime are unable to back, go back home with a dime on Mondays is a big blow to their faces and a win for the fight of liberation.
All right, now interestingly and shockingly at the same time, tornado destroys homes in La Republic du Cameroon. La Republic du Cameroon's colonial military men in Amazonia have rendered many homes in Amazonia burnt down and many homeless. The Scotch Ed policy in Amazonia have seen many houses burned down. Cameroonese have never sympathized with Amazonians with the pains inflicted on them by La Republic du Cameroon terrorist forces, maybe because they don't know what it feels like. But now nature has decided to make them have a pinch of what Ambazonians are going through. A tornado has removed rooftops in La Republic du Cameroon, leaving many stranded with properties exposed to rain. The word of the Lord says, "Do not touch my anointed and do my prophet no harm." They have touched the children of God, as this is a God ordained struggle, and unfortunately are facing the rot.
While scores of houses have been destroyed and roofs of others ripped off by tornado that has been recurrent in the towns of Mbagisina and Ntui in the Mbam and Kim division of the Central region of La Republic du Cameroon. Families have been compelled to sleep in open air with their properties exposed to rainfall. Due to the strong winds, belongings, notably clothes, are littered everywhere. In Mbamgesina, and municipal authorities descended to the sea to evaluate the damage caused by the tornado. He noticed enormous destruction, which left many people homeless and stranded.
Well, from the mayor of Mbangasina, Bernard, he says it has been an unfortunate moment lived by the population these past days. So far, we have counted 74 houses affected, with at least 358 people, including parents and their children, homeless, stranded, and frustrated. The affected denizens are unsure of what they will rebuild their houses or of when they will rebuild their houses or have them back intact. This, they say, is due to lack of funds. From someone, a neighbor, who says, "I settled here with my family for years and we have been managing our lives here. With what the tornado has caused, I don't know where I'll start to regain shelter. I don't have a friends with me."
Well, he goes on to say, we struggle to have 2 square meals per day. Now the winds have come and worsened the situation. Where will the money to rebuild come from? We are penniless. Let La Republic du Cameroon divert the drama in the presidential plan for reconstruction and development to them, for they need it and are not in war like Amazonians.
Speaking of the fun of Bambalang still in captivity, Bambalang youths have begged Amazonian Restoration Forces to release Fon Kevin Yakum, who has been used and dumped by La Republic du Cameroon, launch SOS for the release of the CPDM Fon, who has been under custody for over 1 year and counting. A sad experience and lesson for the remaining CPDM traditional authorities of Ambazonia extraction in colonial La Republic du Cameroon systems. News reaching Undaunted says some sons and daughters of Bambalang village in Dop local government area in Goketunja County have begged on Ambazonian Restoration Forces to release their father, Fon Kevin Yakum, who has been under custody for over a year.
Well, ABC Amber TV news source adds that the youth met on Sunday, April 2nd, 2023 in Yaoundé under the canopy of Mbao Yakum Youth, headed by their national president, Mingo Pius. And they came together, which was purposefully to plan for an upcoming peace conference. Also saw many important things discussed, amongst which the issue of their phone. Now, during this meeting, Undaunted guarded that the youth president, who is a CPDM militant, lamented that if the ARFs have not achieved their aims for over 6 years of fighting and killing, then keeping their phone in captivity would help them and gain independence. Now, the CPDM militants in Bengu said it was a terrible thing. Now he goes on to say, we are begging on them to release him before our peace conference so that we can sit and discuss on our developments.
Well, it was also revealed during the come together that Bambalang village, just like the other communities across Ambaland, has suffered a lot as a result of the over 6 years armed conflict. The youth regretted that many of their projects have not been executed because of the prolonged crisis, which barred them from getting easy access to the village. Arrested on December 7th, 2021, Fon Kevin Yakum, who doubled as president of the Northwest CPDM House of Chiefs, has spent close to a year and 4 months in the hands of Ambazonian Restoration Forces.
Well, the traditional authority was caught at his own palace in Bambalang and taken to an unknown location by the fighters. Reports say he went to the village for a traditional rites. Since he was whisked off, nothing clearly has been heard concerning his case. Even the Colonial Yaoundé CPDM government he represents has been criticized several times for keeping sealed lips on his case, unlike other authorities who have gone through similar situations in the conflict that has hit the Amber Land.
Where is La Republic is the question. This is a CPDM member, a president of the Northwest region. La Republic has forgotten about the money-minded CPDM fauna of Bambalang as it uses and dumps every Amazonian who gives in to them. One wonders what could be going on in his mind as he gnashes his teeth under arrest for cooperating with the heartless colonial La Republic junta. Will others sell out funds and chiefs like the CPDM fund Chaffa the 11th of Bangolan, Ekoko Mukete, the 4th of the Bafaus, and more learn? On November 13, 2022, the CPDM phone was seen in a video calling on the powers that be to release family members of dreaded ARFs, Mbashe Clement, popularly known as No PT, so that he also can be released. But unfortunately, that has not been done.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, now in West Africa, Alex Enuma writes, despite all the steps taken over the years to resolve the issue of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu's forfeiture of 460,000 US dollars in Chicago, United States, the issue has continued to linger. It is hoped that the petition filed by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, to challenge his victory in the February 25th elections will eventually put it to rest permanently.
Well, the court hearing on the Nigerian presidential election have been pretty intense and interesting. The recent petition filed by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, at the presidential election petition court in Abuja to challenge the victory of Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress in the February 25th election has again thrown up the much repeated and reported forfeiture of 460,000 US dollars by the former governor of Lagos State over an alleged drug case in the United States.
Well, Tinubu's drug case is among the key grounds for which Obi is seeking his disqualification in the election petition. The former Anambra State governor filed against the declaration of the former Lagos State governor as the president-elect following his victory at the February 25th presidential elections. In his petition, Obi argued that Tinubu, at the time of the presidential election, was not qualified to contest the election.
Well, he stated that the former Lagos State governor was fined 460,000 US dollars for an alleged offense involving dishonesty, particularly narcotics trafficking imposed by the United States District Court. Northern District Court, the Eastern Division, in case number 93C 4483 between the US and Tinubu. He ordered that for this reason, the vote purportedly recorded for Tinubu at the presidential election were wasted votes and ought to be disregarded. Since Obi filed the petition, the members of the Obedient Movement have fully resurrected the issue of the forfeiture of the 460,000 US dollars by Tinubu all over the social media. The issue is a recurring decimal as they argue that it is a very veritable ground for the tribunal to annul Tinubu's victory.
Last week, the matter got interesting. In a tweet, a former human rights activist, Ayo Obey, taunted the People's of Labour Party, saying the move by Obi to sack Tinubu on account of the forfeiture case cannot stand, being it is now statute barred. Obey cited Section 1371E of the Constitution that said a person shall not be qualified for elections to the office of president if within a period of less than 10 years before the date of the election to the office of president, he has been convicted and sentenced for an offense involving dishonesty or he has been found guilty of the contravention of the Code of Conduct.
Well, while responding to a beast last weekend, the director of the media in the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, argued that his principal alleged drug case in the US happened more than 10 years ago and cannot, therefore, be used as a basis to truncate his victory at the polls last month. Well, however, Tinubu's traducers have insisted that Section 137, subsection 1D, disqualifies anyone who had been fined for any offenses in the past from becoming president.
While opponents of the former Lagos state governor have also pointed out the January 17, 2014 judgment of the Supreme Court, where it defined forfeiture as punishment for an offense under the Nigerian criminal statutes, may compound his problem. The judgment, which was delivered in the case of Mohammed Abacha versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria by the current Chief Justice of Nigeria CJN, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, while serving as a Supreme Court justice, declared the forfeiture means the loss of a right, privilege, or property because of a crime. The word forfeiture means the divestiture of property without compensation, the loss of a right, privilege, or property because of a crime, breach of obligation, or neglect of duty. This was by Justice Aruwula, held in a majority decision.
He noted that any person who had forfeited property on the basis of a crime cannot be entitled to indemnity, adding that forfeiture is a form of punishment and that therefore there is no indemnity in Nigeria's criminal procedure. While many legal experts have argued that the Tinubu's case is quite different from that of probably Mohammed Abacha in Nigeria, others stated that the peculiarities of the case would need a court to determine if the US court ruling has relevance in Nigeria. Though the People's Democratic Party, that is the PDP, and its presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, did not include the Chicago drug case in their petitions challenging the declaration of Tinubu as president-elect.
The spokesperson of the Atiku Okowa campaign organization, Mr. Kola Olobondiyan, who spoke in Abuja, had expressed the determination of the campaign council to file for an accelerated hearing in the case in the interest of the nation. According to him, Nigeria's law do not permit an alleged convict, let alone an individual convicted on account of the international crime of trafficking in narcotics, to stand election at any level, adding that Nigeria cannot afford to the embarrassment of having an alleged convict hold office at any level. So far, as we can see, the process of reclaiming the mandate as the Labour Party presidential candidate said it would has gotten to a very intense stage, and neither party is backing down on the pursuit of justice.
All right, moving on, let's have a revision of the international law. Now, on to another African report. We go down memory lane to South Africa. Ministers of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, talking in council on foreign affairs relations. Now, this was last year, September 14, 2022. Minister Naledi Pandor discusses the state of democracy in sub-Saharan Africa, the country's relationship with the United States, and the future, its role in the region and internationally.
While in this meeting with Naledi Pandor, the focus was on three major topics: South Africa and US bilateral relationship, and the global governance in this turbulent time, and the last point being leadership. Tackling the first issue, Naledi noted that the relationship between South Africa and the United States is very good, and that the United States is South Africa's third largest trading partner worldwide, that is after China being the first and Europe being the second.
Responding to the tone of South Africa to the US not being very friendly, Panda replied, stating that relationships take place in different categories and between different sectors. And what is really important is to ensure that the business to business relationship is strong, because that is the biggest contributor to the kind of development South Africa wishes to achieve. And making a Secretary of State happy or trying to make a Secretary of State like her is less important than the trade issues.
While further delving into the degree to which the tone of South Africa's rebuke of the United States is being very different than even the tone with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, she states clearly that there is a distinction between the support South Africa enjoyed from Cuba during the struggle against apartheid compared to the support that was given to UNITA by America, stating examples of how UNITA also murdered theirs. Admitting also that there are reasons for the perspectives that exist, and one should never try to pretend that there aren't histories. Going on to talk about Russia, Panda goes on to say Russia, as Russia, the Soviet Union, was prepared to provide support to the liberation movement when many governments were working very closely with the apartheid state and even modern leaders. She says we can is the reason South Africa cannot forgive and forget that history and behave differently.
Being clear in her point of view, she notes that war doesn't assist anyone and that she believes their inhuman actions seen against the people of Ukraine can't be defended by anybody, and neither have they defended them, nor have they been neutral about it. But a lot of public statements that made or that people are making, leading politicians, are not assisting in ameliorating their situation because the first prize must to be achieved, and to achieve peace is the first prize as well.
Importantly, she states we've got to have a cessation of hostilities and name calling of one another. As being very robust and vocal doesn't assist in achieving a cessation of hostilities. She talked extensively further into the hypocrisy of the international community towards inequality in lending a hand and a voice to different nations who need their attention. Well, we have this video excerpt of her doing just that. Let's hear it.
I think this notion of international rules is very comfortable for some people to use when it suits them, but they don't believe in international rules when it doesn't suit them because they don't apply international rules or law equally in all circumstances. See? News of international unequal depending factor arguing that and one of the interesting sudden move because Russia had Ukraine. Okay, let's not the security to just have the veto and hit.
Sorry about that right there. I don't know what's happening to the audio. Some glitch. We'll get that fixed in a jiffy. But before we get back into that, we'll continue with the rest of the stories for tonight.
All right, still about South Africa, let's get to the BRICS summit in August. A lot seems to be on the plate. Now, the BRICS Alliance is exploring the creation of an innovative currency with plans to share proposals on its establishment at the forthcoming summit in South Africa. Now, according to Alexander Babakov, a deputy chairman of Russia's parliament, the State Duma, speaking at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum event in New Delhi, India on Thursday, Babakov said that the plan is to initially transition to using domestic currencies in transaction and then introduce and circulate a digital or alternative form of a ground-breaking currency in the near future.
Well, Babakov anticipates that the BRICS Leaders Summit will reveal a preparedness to implement this particular initiative with work on the project ongoing, news agency Sputnik reported. Babakov did not dismiss the potential emergence of a unified currency that could be used among the BRICS nations. The proposed currency would be backed not only by gold but also by other assets, including rare earth elements or even land.
The BRICS Association comprises the world's most prominent emerging economies, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Several nations such as Argentina, Iran, Indonesia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt have expressed their intention to become part of this economic bloc. The upcoming BRICS summit is scheduled for August 2023, so let's see how things pans out. And coming up right after this short break is sports.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. Untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Well, in sports, Chelsea have sacked manager Graham Potter after less than 7 months in charge following Saturday's 2-0 home defeat at Aston Villa. It was the Englishman's 11th defeat in 31 games since replacing Thomas Tuchel at Stamford Bridge on the 8th of September.
And in Formula One, Australian Grand Prix organizers have promised to investigate after fans invaded the track before Sunday's race had officially finished. Footage shows a large group of the 131,000-strong crowd squeezing through barriers and climbing fences just meters from speeding cars. The Bellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Graham Potter sacked by Chelsea after less than 7 months in charge. Chelsea has sacked manager Graham Potter after less than 7 months in charge following Saturday's 2-0 home defeat by Aston Villa. It was the Englishman's 11th defeat in 31 games since replacing Thomas Tuchel at Stamford Bridge on 8 September. Chelsea is driven in the Premier League points outside 4, having spent more than £550 million on new players this season. The club's owners said they were disappointed to sack Potter. Chelsea say Potter has agreed to collaborate with the club to facilitate a smooth transition and that Bruno Saltor, who worked with Potter at Brighton, will take charge of the team as interim head coach. In a state co-controlling owners Todd Bowley and Bedard said, have the highest degree of respect for Graham as a coach and as a person. He has always conducted himself with professionalism, integrity, and we're all set in this outcome. Chelsea host Liverpool in the Premier League on Tuesday and face Real Madrid in the first leg of their Champions League quarter-final on 12th April. There have now been 13 managerial changes in the Premier League this season, 3 more than in any other previous campaign, with Leicester also sacking Brendan Rodgers earlier on Sunday. Along with our incredible fans, we will all be getting behind Bruno and the team as we focus on the rest of the season. The Chelsea owners added, we have 10 Premier League games remaining and a Champions League quarter-final ahead. We will put every effort and commitment into every one of those games so that we can end the season on a high. He won 12 of his 31 games in charge in all competitions and managed 1.27 points per game in the Premier League, the joint lowest of any manager to take charge of 20 or more games for Chelsea in the Premier League alongside Glenn Hoddle. Former Spanish right-back Bruno, 42, spent 7 years as a player at Brighton before retiring in 2019 and moving into coaching. Potter was Bowley's first managerial appointment since taking over the club in May 2022, with the Englishman impressing in his 3 years at Brighton. Speaking to Sky Sports after her Chelsea side's Women's Super League win over Aston Villa on Sunday, boss Emma Hayes said, obviously I'm upset for Graham and the club. I know everybody wanted to make it work. If the owners feel like they have to go in another direction, then of course, as always, I support the decisions and wish Graham the best. With 10 games left to play in the Premier League, I'm sure the boys will do everything to get back on track. I'm a manager, and I'm always gutted when managers lose their job. Potter replaced Tuchel, who won 3 trophies in 20 months, at Stamford Bridge in September when the Blues were sixth in the top flight, following a summer during which they spent £255 million on transfers. Owner Bowley went on another remarkable spending spree in January, shelling out £288 million. Argentina midfielder Enzo Fernandez and Ukraine forward Mikhail Modric were among 8 mid-season signings, but the new additions have struggled to click on the pitch. Formula One. Australian GP chief to investigate post-race fan invasion. Australian Grand Prix organizers have promised to investigate after fans invaded the track before Sunday's race had officially finished. Footage showed a large group of the 131,000-strong crowd squeezing through barriers and climbing fences just meters from speeding cars. Some reached the stranded hairs of Nico Hulkenberg on the exit of Turn 2. The sports governing body, the FIA, said the incident was a serious breach of the sporting code. Australian Grand Prix Corporation Chief Executive Andrew Westacott said the outcome at Melbourne's Albert Park could have been horrific. The FIA said security measures and the protocols which were expected to be in place for the event were not enforced, resulting in an unsafe environment for the spectators, drivers, and race officials. It has demanded that organizers urgently present a formal remediation plan. Westacott said officials would troll security cameras to try and find out how the breach occurred at the end of an incident-packed race which was won by Red Bull's Max Verstappen and ended on the car after a crash-affected restart. There is a controlled allowance of people to come on to the track after the race had concluded and after the safety car passes, he told ABC. Spectators had broken one of the lines. We don't know how that's occurred just yet. We've got a lot of CCTV and we've got a huge amount of footage we're going to have to pour through over the next couple of weeks. Motorsport is dangerous. It could have been horrific. Nobody does anything malicious at motorsport. It's an unbelievable well-behaved crowd, but they, I think, had a degree of confusion. We don't know how they got into the area without the right level of authority. Meanwhile, race organizers have also been criticized by a spectator who suffered a cut to his arm when he was struck by a piece of debris from Hare's driver Kevin Magnussen's car. Will Sweet told Australian radio station 3AW he was standing with his fiancée on a packed hill just off Turn 2 when the Dane's car hit a trackside barrier, sending his tire and debris flying into the air. It slapped me in the arm, and I was just standing there bleeding, he said. My arm was covering where my neck would have been, but if that had hit my fiancée, it would have got her right in the head. I realized how big it was and how heavy it was. Part of it was shredded and really sharp. If it hit me in a different angle, it could have been horrendous. Australian media published a picture of Sweet holding a large piece of debris with blood trickling down his forearm and another showing him having treatment from a medical official at the track. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, and with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at our major highlights.
Tonight, we brought you the overview of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian Liberation Movement and also how effective ghost towns are on the streets of Bamenda. And also the tornado destroys houses in La Republic du Cameroon.
All right, today we also told you that La Republic du Cameroon has abandoned sellouts as denizens of Bambalang plead with their Ambazonian restoration forces for the release of their funds. We also brought to you African reports as well. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing to the news on Untold Stories. On behalf of Michael and Costerspat and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.